The package came from a motel in northern Arizona that had been torn down 16 years earlier, and the first thing inside was a hospital bracelet with my name on it. I had never stayed at the Sun Mesa Motor Lodge. At least, that was what I believed. The bracelet showed an admission date in September of 1995. Under lay a motel key sleeve, 6 photographs from a disposable camera, a cassette tape, 2 gasoline receipts, and a brass fountain nozzle wrapped in a washcloth. I knew the nozzle before I touched it. For 34 years, I maintained public fountains for the city of Phoenix. I repaired pumps beneath shopping plazas, cleaned mineral scale from bronze statues, and crawled through wet concrete vaults while tourists threw pennies over my head. The little nozzle in the package had come from the old Civic Square fountain, the first major system I ever rebuilt. I had given it to my younger sister, Beth. She carried it on her key ring until the night she left Arizona and stopped speaking to me. I was 69 when the package arrived. Beth had been gone from my life for 28 years. The return label named a woman called Paige Larkin in Prescott. I did not know her. A note inside said the box had been found behind a false drawer in a motel desk during demolition. Her father had owned the Sun Mesa. He died recently, and she was following instructions written on the lid. The instructions said, "Send to Wade Hollis after Beth Hollis can no longer object." I read that sentence 3 times. Then I looked at the photographs. The first showed the motel parking lot at night. The second showed my father's pickup with the driver's door bent inward. The third showed Beth sitting on the curb, blood on her blouse. In the fourth photograph, I was lying beside the truck. My wife, Nora, was kneeling over me. I remembered Beth crashing that truck. I remembered Nora calling me from Flagstaff. I remembered arriving after the police had already taken Beth away. The photographs showed a different sequence. They showed that I had been there before the crash. And in the last picture, my hand was wrapped around the steering wheel. Beth was 4 years younger than me and quicker to notice when people were pretending. Our father, Everett, called that disrespect. Our mother called it sensitivity. I called it trouble, because trouble was what usually followed when Beth said aloud what the rest of us had agreed not to see. By 1995, our mother was dead and Everett was 76. He still lived alone in the small stucco house near Glendale where Beth and I had grown up. He forgot appointments, misplaced cash, and once left a skillet burning until a neighbor smelled smoke. Beth wanted him evaluated. I told her he was grieving. He put his shoes in the freezer, she said. He was tired. He called me Mom. He caught himself. She stared at me across my kitchen table. You fix broken things for a living, Wade. Why can't you admit when one is breaking? I did not like the comparison. Fountains fail in ways a man can measure. Pressure changes. Bearings heat up. Water turns cloudy. Families fail while everybody argues over the definition. Nora usually stayed out of our disputes, but that summer she began meeting Beth without telling me. I learned later they toured assisted living facilities and spoke with an elder care attorney. At the time, all I knew was that my father accused Beth of trying to take his house. Then $6,000 disappeared from a savings account. Everett blamed her immediately. Beth did not deny taking it. She said, "Dad cannot keep living alone." I asked where the money went. She would not tell me. That was the last conversation we had before the crash. In the version I carried for years, Beth took Everett's truck and drove north. She had been drinking. Near Flagstaff, she struck a concrete divider and broke 2 ribs. Police found the missing money in an envelope under the passenger seat. Nora told me Beth refused to see me at the hospital. She left Arizona after the charges were reduced. Everett changed his will. I chose not to search for her. The brass nozzle became proof of her selfishness because she took it with her. I had given it to her when we were young, and she carried it even while abandoning us. Now it had returned from a motel desk beside my own hospital bracelet. I picked up the cassette. A strip of masking tape across it said, "Wade, before Nora changes her mind." I called Paige Larkin. She was 53 and worked at a veterinary clinic in Prescott. Her father, Dale, had owned the Sun Mesa until a highway expansion ruined the business. Why did he hide the package? I asked. He didn't, she said. A woman paid him to keep it. Beth. I don't know. Dad called her Mrs. Hollis. That was Nora's name, too. Paige found a note among her father's papers after his death. It instructed him to mail the package only after receiving an obituary for Beth Hollis, or after 30 years, whichever came first. Did he receive an obituary? Yes. My chest tightened when, last month, Beth was dead. Paige gave me the name of the hospice in Santa Fe that had published a notice. Beth had died from lung disease at 65. She had worked for years as an office manager at a landscaping company. No husband was listed, no children. The notice named one surviving friend, Marlene Shaw. I wrote down the number Paige gave me, but I did not call immediately. Instead, I played the cassette. Nora's voice came first. If you're recording, I'm leaving. Beth answered, then leave. There was movement, a chair scraping tile. Nora said, he doesn't remember. He remembers pieces. He has a concussion. He thinks I drove. I know. Silence followed. Then Beth began crying. I had heard my sister cry only twice in my life. Once when our mother died. Once when Everett gave away her dog because she came home late. On the tape, Beth said, you told him that. I told him what the police report says. The police report says I was behind the wheel because I said I was. You were the only one sober enough to answer questions. That does not make it true. I stopped the tape. My hands were shaking. The photographs were not misleading. I had driven the truck. Beth had claimed she did. I restarted the cassette. Nora's voice was quieter. If Wade loses his city license, we lose the house. Beth replied, and if I take the charge, I lose mine. You work temporary jobs. I am still a person, Nora. I know. No, you know what I cost. The recording ended with a door slamming. For nearly 3 decades, I believe Beth refused to see me after crash. The tape suggested she had been standing close enough to hear my wife decide whose life could absorb the damage. Marlene Shaw agreed to meet me in Santa Fe. She was 67, with cropped gray hair and a careful way of watching me that made it clear Beth had prepared her for this possibility. We sat in a diner near Cirillo's Road. I brought the brass nozzle in my coat pocket. Marlene looked at it when I placed it on the table. She kept that in her desk, she said. Why was it hidden at the motel? It wasn't hidden from you. It was hidden from herself. I asked what that meant. Marlene folded her napkin into smaller and smaller squares. Beth kept trying to mail you the box. Then she would remember you never answered her letters. I never got any letters. That's what she suspected near the end. Marlene had known Beth since 1998. They worked together at a nursery outside Albuquerque. Beth told her the crash story in pieces. After I left the hospital, Beth remained in Flagstaff for 2 days. Nora stayed with her. The police believed Beth had been driving because she said so at the scene. She also submitted to a blood test. It showed no alcohol. My test showed alcohol, but the hospital recorded it as part of my treatment file, not the traffic investigation, because the officer never identified me as the driver. How much had I drunk? I asked. Beth said 2 beers. That sounded possible. I drank beer with dinner then. 2 would not have made me helpless, but it could have complicated a city safety review. Why were we all at the motel? Marlene looked toward the window. You followed Beth. According to her, Beth had taken Everett's truck because he was threatening to report her for theft. Nora called Beth and asked her to wait at the Sun Mesa until I calmed down. I drove north in my own car. Nora came with me. At the motel, we argued in the parking lot. Beth tried to leave. I took Everett's keys and said I was bringing the truck home. You were angry, Marlene said. You kept saying she had humiliated Dad. What caused the crash? Beth said you swerved when she grabbed the wheel. That makes it her fault. Not exactly. Beth grabbed the wheel because I was turning around to shout at Nora in the back seat. The truck drifted toward the divider. All 3 of us contributed. Only one of us accepted the official blame. Marlene gave me a sealed letter Beth had left for me. I opened it in my hotel room. Wade, you will want one person to be responsible. That has always made things easier for you. please resist it this time. I took Dad's money. I did not steal it for myself. The $6,000 paid a deposit at a memory care facility in Tucson. Beth had found a place willing to admit Everett quickly after he wandered onto Grand Avenue at night and nearly stepped into traffic. She forged his signature on the admission papers. She knew he would refuse. Nora knew about the plan. I did not. Beth intended to take Everett to Tucson the morning after crash. The cash envelope under the truck seat held the unused balance and receipts. The police returned the envelope to Everett. He saw only that Beth had taken money and hidden it. Nora promised Beth she would explain everything after I recovered. She never did. I called Marlene. Why didn't Beth tell me herself? She tried. I would have listened. Marlene was silent long enough to make the answer clear. Beth sent letters for almost 10 years. Birthday cards. Copies of the facility receipt. A statement from Everett's doctor. She never received a response. I remembered Nora bringing in the mail every afternoon. She sorted it at the counter. Bills in one stack. Personal letters in another. Anything from Everett went directly into the desk drawer because seeing his handwriting upset me after his death. Beth's letters could have disappeared there without effort. When I returned to Phoenix, I opened Nora's old desk. She had died 6 years earlier. I had emptied the obvious drawers after the funeral, but never removed the bottom one because it stuck against the frame. I took out the screws. Behind the drawer was a bundle tied with kitchen twine, 23 envelopes. Every one was addressed to me in Beth's handwriting. None had been opened. On top lay a note from Nora. I kept thinking I would tell him when he was stronger. Then years passed, and telling him meant admitting what I had done. The false story had not survived because Beth stayed silent. It survived because my wife intercepted every attempt she made to reach me. I read the letters in order. At first, Beth was angry. She described the crash, the hospital, and Nora's request that she maintain the lie until I returned to work. She wrote that she agreed because Nora had recently lost her health insurance through a part-time job and needed surgery for a heart rhythm problem. I had forgotten that surgery because it had gone well. At the time, it felt like a cliff edge. My city job carried our insurance. A driving charge connected to alcohol in a county vehicle dispute might not have cost me my position, but Nora believed it could. Beth agreed to accept reckless driving. The charge was later reduced because no one else was injured and property damage was limited. She paid a fine, attended classes, and lost her license for several months. In later letters, her anger softened. She asked about Everett. She apologized for forging his signature. She admitted she had acted partly from love and partly because she could not bear another year of being the daughter who saw the problem while her older brother dismissed it. One sentence appeared twice. I wanted to be right badly enough that I stopped asking what right would cost everyone else. Everett never entered memory care. After the crash, he refused to speak to Beth. I took over his care and moved him into our guest room. For 3 years, Nora and I struggled through his confusion, anger, and nighttime wandering. I remember myself as the son who stayed while Beth escaped. Now I knew she had tried to arrange the help we eventually needed. I also found a letter from 6 months before Everett died. Beth wrote that she had spoken to him by telephone. He apologized for accusing her of theft. He asked her not to contact me yet. That made no sense until I found Nora's note clip behind it. Everett told Beth the crash was Wade's punishment for choosing her over him. I sat on the floor beside the desk. My father had known the truth. Nora must have told him enough to explain the money. He forgave Beth privately, but he allowed me to continue blaming her. He needed me angry at Beth because anger kept me home, caring for him. The story had not been built by one liar. Each of us had added the piece that protected our own fear. The cassette contained a second recording on the other side. This one began in a hospital room. I could hear a television, shoes in the hallway, and my own voice asking where the truck was. Nora answered, "Beth wrecked it." I said, "I thought I was driving." "You're confused." "Why would Beth drive?" "She took Dad's truck, Wade." I repeated that slowly, as if testing the shape of it. Then Beth entered. Her voice came from farther away. "He remembers." Nora said, Not clearly. I asked Beth why she had grabbed the wheel. She replied, "Because you turned around." That sentence had been waiting inside me for 28 years. I remembered the parking lot, Beth shouting that Everett was sick, Nora telling us both to lower our voices, me taking the keys because I was tired of being treated like the last person to understand my own family. I remember driving too fast. Nora in the back seat said something about the missing money. I turned toward her. Beth reached across. Concrete filled the windshield. The tape continued. I heard myself say, "If I was driving, I'll tell them." Nora moved closer to the recorder. "You have a head injury. Don't decide anything tonight." Beth said, "He already decided." "No," Nora replied. He reacted. Then my own voice, weak but unmistakable, said, "Let Beth handle it." I stopped the tape. For days, I believed Nora alone shaped my memory. The recording showed something worse. I gave permission. Maybe I did not understand the full consequences. Maybe I was frightened and medicated. But I knew enough to let my sister stand between me and what I had done. Nora did not invent the arrangement. She preserved the arrangement I accepted when it was convenient. That was why Beth's letter said I would search for one responsible person. I had spent my life maintaining fountains by tracing every failure to a single broken part. A clogged intake, a burned motor, a cracked seal. The crash was not a fountain. It was a system built from several frightened adults, each passing pressure to the next person. And when the weakest connection broke, we named it Beth. Paige Larkin called while I was still listening to the tapes. She had found another envelope in her father's papers. It was addressed to Nora, not me. Paige read the date aloud. It was written 3 years after crash. I asked her to open it. The letter was from Beth. "Nora, I know Wade agreed in the hospital. I also know he was not himself. I will not expose him. But I will not let you keep telling him I refuse to see him. Tell him I stayed. Tell him I sat outside his room until morning. Tell him he asked me to take the blame and then cried because he knew I might." Paige stopped reading. There was a second page. Beth wrote that she planned to return to Phoenix and speak to me directly. Before she could, Everett called her. He threatened to tell police that Beth had stolen the truck and forged financial documents unless she stayed away. Some of that was true. Beth had taken the truck without permission. She had forged Everett's signature. If he pursued it, she could lose the office job she had just found in New Mexico and possibly face charges. Nora asked her to wait. Beth waited. Then Nora began returning her calls less often. The sacrifice became separation because separation was easier for everyone who remained. I asked Paige why her father kept the package. "Beth came back to the motel years later," she said. "She and my dad became friends. Dale had photographed the crash scene for insurance purposes. He kept duplicate prints and found the cassette recorder beneath a motel room chair after Nora and Beth left. Beth discovered this when she visited in 2004. She assembled the package but could not send it. Why not?" Paige's voice softened. "Because she had read your obituary. I was not dead." But in 2003, a Phoenix newspaper printed an obituary for another Wade Hollis, a retired electrician. Beth saw the name in City and believed it was me. She called Nora. Nora did not correct her. That was the final protection Nora offered herself. She let Beth believe I was gone because a dead man could not learn how long his wife had hidden the mail. Beth grieved me for more than 20 years while I resented her for staying away. I went to Santa Fe in late October and met Marlene at Beth's apartment. The landlord had left her belongings untouched while the estate was settled. Beth lived simply. Books, plants, secondhand furniture, and one wall covered with photographs. There were pictures of Everett as a young man, pictures of Nora, pictures of me repairing the Civic Square fountain, taken from an old city newsletter. Beth had not removed us from her life. She had arranged us where we could not answer back. Marlene gave me Beth's ashes and asked what I planned to do. I said I did not know. That was the first honest answer I had given quickly in years. Back in Phoenix, I contacted the city department that now managed Civic Square. The original fountain had been replaced, but part of the old basin remained in storage. A supervisor I once trained let me visit. The concrete was stained white with mineral deposits. Most of the brass fittings had been stripped away. I brought Beth's ashes, the package, and the small nozzle. I did not scatter her there. She had never asked for that. Instead, I sat on the edge of the basin and read her last letter. Wade, if this reaches you, I am probably gone, or brave in a way I never managed before. I was not innocent. I took Dad's money. I forged his name. I grabbed the wheel. I accepted your blame, then used your silence as proof that leaving was the only choice. Nora loved you. She also feared you. Dad needed you. I wanted you to choose me without being forced. None of us asked cleanly for what we needed. That was the whole letter. I arranged for Beth's ashes to be placed beside our mother in Glendale. Her name now appears on the family marker. Everett's too. Nora's grave is across town, and I visited without pretending I know exactly what forgiveness should feel like. The package remains in my workshop. The hospital bracelet lies beside the cassette and the motel photographs. I kept the receipts because they show small truths the larger story nearly erased. 2 cups of coffee, a tank of gas, a room paid for by Nora, ordinary purchases made during a night that divided our lives. The brass nozzle is back on my keyring. When Beth carried it, I thought it meant she remembered the brother who gave it to her. After the crash, I treated it as proof she could take something good and walk away. Now I know she left it with the package because she could no longer decide what it meant. The metal has darkened with age. One side is scratched from years of keys rubbing against it. Sometimes when I unlock my workshop, the nozzle catches against the door plate. For an instant it holds. Then I turn my hand more gently, and it comes free.